I hate classrooms. Can't we all agree that classrooms suck? But if you want to be a strategist, unfortunately, there is no getting out of studying. Now, I'm going to try and make these videos as quick and concise as I can. Many people have asked for more academic talk about games design, about strategy, about many topics. And so I thought I would start with a pilot video, see how it goes, with a strategy guide, as it were, but a classroom strategy guide, sort of thing that you can't really teach while playing a game. And we'll put a tool in your strategy toolbox. So, what is the strategy toolbox? Well, the toolbox it's a mental box with everything you know about strategy games in it. Generic things, which when you pick up a fresh game, like I got this one comment when I played Warhammer Demon Hunters, and the guy said, it's a real demonstration of your skill that you can just pick up this game, play it on the hardest difficulty a week before it's even released, and just plow through it, without any, obviously without any guidance or any help. And the reason why I could do that is because I have a lot of strategic tools in my strategy toolbox, which I'm just using to go through the game as a general strategy. And that's often enough. That's often enough to beat games. Even on the hardest difficulties, it's enough. Okay, so the first thing I've picked out is Invincible Box Theory. And this is actually a first-person shooter strategy tool, but it also works in strategy games. So I'll explain how it came about, and then it may have a different name elsewhere, but I know it as Invincible Box Theory. I'll explain how it came about, and then we'll talk about some practical applications of Invincible Box Theory. So, what is Invincible Box Theory? Well, imagine you're playing a first-person shooter, so let's say that this is you. What is the most dangerous point at which you can be attacked? Well, it's from behind, right? In most first-person shooter games, you have a cone of vision that looks something like this. Probably about something like this. It would be a diamond of some description. And the area behind you is obviously where you're most vulnerable. So, what you want to do is, in a lot of FPS games, in the original FPS games, you probably saw some boxes around that looked more or less like this. Look at this. This is art here. So you had some boxes, and they looked like this. I hate it when Paint does that. You have to like click away. There we go. Thank you, Paint. Okay. And these boxes would be all over the map, everywhere. And so the idea is pretty simple. What if you just stood where this box here, was just behind you, right? Seems simple enough. If this box was here, then you couldn't be attacked from behind. You are invincible. Now, obviously, this is just a very simple concept. But what happened with this idea, I mean, this is the very early games where multiplayer first-person shooter was literally in its infancy. What later came, what very quickly came after that, was just this idea. And this has influenced game design ever since. So in the original FPS games like Doom, you would have a map that sort of, it would look something like this. let's say, you'd have a map that looked something along these lines. And so what you would do in a multiplayer situation is you would be like, well, if I stand here, and this is my vision, then I can't be surprised. This room has become my invincible box because I have sight over the only entrance, and this room is a contained area, so it's a box, and so no one can ever attack me from behind as long as I'm here. This is a great position to be in, and in Doom you had somewhat difficult controls. You used the keyboard to control back in those days. You didn't actually have mouse control of the view. So, you know, when people started doing this, what other people would do is they would stand, say, here. Drawing an X is hard. They'd stand here and they would move. They would hold the Alt key to strafe, and they would strafe in while facing a particular direction, either up or down, and they would just hope to guess that if someone was camping in this room, that they would be in the correct direction and not stood in the opposite corner to blast them in the back. But if you were quick with your strafing, you could strafe in, and if there was no one there, you could quickly, or relatively quickly, pivot around and try and fight back if you're being shot at. But anyway, this idea of the invincible box and camping in the corner, it influenced level design for forever on. So that in multiplayer games, you never had maps that looked like that anymore. You had maps that looked like this. So you would never have any dead-end rooms anywhere. You would always have two entrances to every room. You'd probably even have, say, a room in the middle that's also connected up like this. And this Invincible Box Theory basically influenced the whole world of multiplayer design, where every level would never have any rooms that didn't have at least two entrances to them. So if you played Counter-Strike, for example, you had the classic map Dust. Well, Dust had Dust had a room that was like this, with some boxes in the corner, and then there was an entrance here to the tunnel area. That tunnel area also had two entrances into it, and then there was an entrance here that led into this wide open area, and that open area fed into this room, which then fed into the top corner, which is like one of the bomb points was in a box area up here. This bit was a ramp, and then this bit led over the top to the beginning area, and just basically and there was a bit down here too, and every as you can see from this design, just going completely off the top of my head here, it's been a while, but you can see from this design, every point in this map, this is a wall, every point in this map, there are two entrances to absolutely every possible position. I'm not going to do the bottom beginning area. Everyone knows what Dust looks like if you've played Counter-Strike or studied any level design. This influence of this design came around because of Invincible Box Theory. Now, the theory advanced from here, and this is the tool that I wanted to teach you. The theory advanced from here that while level designers got smart and made sure that you couldn't just camp in a room with one entrance, it is still possible to exploit the idea of Invincible Box Theory. All you need is to have a secure area and know the movement of particular units. And this is where it folds into strategy games as well. So, here's an example. we have a simple level design, which is just 4 rooms. Okay, so here's my 4 rooms. And then they've got 4 corridors that link them together. Now, the theory goes like this. If you know, because as a good player, you're always going to be moving at the maximum speed that you can move. And everyone else is also going to be, as long as they're good, they're going to be moving at the maximum speed that they can move. So if you are at this position here, so you're in this corridor. When you enter this room, and you're moving as fast as you can through the room, this is setting up the invincible box. So you move as quickly as you can through this room, and it takes you, say, 7 seconds to bunny hop your way through this room as fast as it can possibly be done. You now know that once you hit here, you cannot be attacked from behind for 7 seconds. You have engaged the invincible box. This is your invincible box, and it's time limited, 7 seconds. But you know that as long as 7 seconds has not passed, you can attack into this room. This room, you can attack into this room, and you know that you don't have to look behind you for 7 seconds, because whoever it is that's catching up with you, say there's another person here and they've just noticed you and they're chasing after you, you know that it would take them at least 7 seconds to get behind you. And once you clear this room, if you understand that this room is also 7 seconds, if you understand that this distance is also 7 seconds, you can clean this room, and once you're done cleaning it, and you know that there's no one in it, and you move into the next area, you then know that this room is also secure for 7 seconds. And so this is why you see expert first-person shooter players moving all the time, moving. You think, well, why are they moving all the time when they just find a good position and stay there? They are engaging this idea of invincible box theory. As long as they're moving all the time and they understand the maths of each room, they understand the time it takes to get through each room, they know that they have an amount of time to secure a room, take any power-ups, whatever, and they understand that on leaving the room, they quickly look behind themselves, because if someone's chasing after them, and they're chasing after them efficiently, then they should be on their case in exactly 7 seconds. So on the 7th second, they move to this position, they look behind themselves to see if an expert player has just caught up to them, maybe they linger slightly, and then they immediately move into the next room. And now they know that they have another, however long distance this is, 7 seconds, to aggress on the next room, knowing that they cannot possibly be attacked from behind, because it would take a player that amount of time to get through that room. And so they are effectively creating that original situation of the room that has one entrance on a temporary basis. That is the idea of invincible box theory, and it works in strategy games too. So you may have heard me in Panzer Corps 2 and many other strategy games talking about securing space, securing an area. So if you have a line of tanks like this, okay, and then you have a map that's like this, what you want to do is you want to create that invulnerable box, because just like in a first-person shooter game, typically you are most vulnerable from behind. Your front line will often have a soft support line behind it of artillery, anti-aircraft guns, whatever it is. You'll have this soft line behind your front line. So your front line will be your infantry and your tanks and your front line units, and behind it will be your soft line of your artillery, your aircraft, etc. But you don't have the resources to just always, have a massive line across the whole map of tanks and artillery. So what you want to do is you want to create that space, that invincible box. And you can do that by using a recon element. So, for example, this is my recon unit. And let's call this the space around the recon unit that is detected. So, if I position my one recon unit I hate it when paint does this. There we go. Just wouldn't adjust on the fly. If I position my recon unit here and another one here, now I can take this small piece of line that I had and I can reposition it. I mean, wherever I want, really. But I can reposition that little piece of line. I can put it, say, wrong color. I can put it, say, here. And the artillery bit that came with it, I can put that behind it here. And now I can then move these two recon elements up. So I'll just undo here to just delete these recon elements. I can move them up. I can position them, say, here and here. Okay. And this is the bit of the line that I cut away. So let's take this bit. This bit of the line I cut away. That was a horrible cut by me. I've normally got very steady hands. Okay, so that bit of the line, I moved it to here. And I put a small artillery, I put my support element behind it here. And what I've done is I have created, as I move these elements forward, I have created my invincible box because I know that nothing can be here, that nothing can be here, that nothing can be in this space behind my front line because I've scouted it and there's now no way for the enemy to get to it without me noticing. If the enemy moves through here, it's going to be detected by my scouts. And if the enemy obviously is not going to push through my front line here. So I have now created the invincible box. And now I can bring this front line together and actually make a line and then push it across the map. All the time using these scouts to gain knowledge of the space. And I don't need to see this area anymore. I mean, the vision, let's say that my normal units have not got the greatest vision. So my normal units can see like this much. And I can't do that diagonally because paint is absolute garbage. So we'll just say around here is the vision for this frontline piece. I don't need to see here or here or here. I don't need to see any of this space anymore. This space, which I'll just fill in grey, this space has become the invincible box because I know that at one point that there was nothing there and that there has never been a point by which the enemy could sneak past me to get into this space. And so this area has become secured and I don't have to worry about it. So I don't have to worry about being flanked. So by doing this and by constantly pushing your scouts forward and adjusting your line to cover any potential holes, you can expand the invincible box across the map and never have to worry about being flanked. So you do need a reasonable amount of recon element to pull it off. But what if you don't have that? What if you don't have that recon element, or you don't have those resources available? Well, in a lot of games you can scout with, say, planes or satellite scans or whatever. And this is where the FPS knowledge comes back in. Let's say that this map is enormous. So let's say that this map is so big that our front line is just a tiny line on an enormous map. So there's our front line, there's our support units, and we have some recon elements, and those recon elements are also very small. Let's say their sight is like this. What you can do is rely on the same idea of the moving invincible box from first-person shooters, in that if you have a way to scout an area, you know that a front line, a proper front line, can only realistically move a certain amount in a turn. So in one turn, this front line might be able to move this distance. And let's say the orange bar is as far as some sort of potential flanking unit like a scout or whatever can move. And you want to get over here somewhere, and you want to stay coherent while you're doing it and not get attacked in the rear. So if you move your front line the full length that it can move, while so here's the old position of the front line and here's the new one. So you move it the green line, which is as far as you can move it while keeping it safe. The orange line is representing in a circle where a scout car could exist and get behind you. Get to a position behind you where it could damage your front line. So this is the circle here. I'm amazed how easily I freehanded that. So this is my circle here. So I know that enemy units within this line that are scout cars could threaten my rear line. And enemy front lines within the green area could threaten my front line. Obviously, it would be more of an oblong because it would be a line. But anyway, you get the idea. So as my units are moving, all I need to do is, with my scouts, I just need to check this area and this and this area, which I'll mark in purple, say. This is the area I'm moving into. I only need to check these two areas, the orange area and the purple area. I need to check the purple area as I'm advancing, so that I'm not advancing into a problem. But don't forget that the front line is, obviously, it's the front, so it's designed to deal with problems. The purple box just has to be checked for awareness of what you're pushing towards, you know, the threats that your front line is going to devour. Because the idea with a strategy game typically is, if your front line is pointed at the enemy correctly and you're attacking, you're going to destroy them, because defending is hard. But the yellow area is the area I have to be aware of, that I could be counterattacked from space that I have no knowledge of. So whatever scouting resources I have, I just check in this small area, and having checked it, when I then move forward again, so when this group moves forward again to the next area, so when we get to this point and we're moving again, we no longer have to check this area or any of the areas which we've moved through, because we're moving. And we know that there wasn't someone behind us last turn, and given their speed, they can't possibly be behind us the next turn either, unless their movement is greater than our movement. So what we're saying here is that there's no front line that could attack us from behind as long as we're moving, because if their front line is moving at the fastest possible speed it's possible to move a front line, and you're doing the same, they'll never catch up with you. So you have that invincible box theory behind you. Now, you have to check that extra bit of space behind you for the faster units acting independently. They're not always, they can often do you some damage, they're not always the greatest threat. So you can apply invincible box theory to a strategy game by keeping your units moving constantly. You know that you have a period of time where, if you then encounter a very dangerous enemy front line, if you encounter at this point an enemy front line and you start to slow down, you know that you have 1, maybe 2 turns before you have to worry about looking behind you, because there isn't time for the enemy to get behind you. And that's how invincible box theory works in strategy games. Okay, 26 minutes. I hope that this was informative and interesting, and that invincible box theory puts a tool in your toolkit, in your strategic toolkit. Depending on what you guys think of this series, I will cover other strategic tools. This is a very basic one, but it's a very important one to understand. You are, in any game, most vulnerable where you can't see and in areas that you're not aware of. So, the ability, even for a limited time, to not have to search an area or to understand that an area is secure and cannot possibly be insecure is of huge benefit to you. As always, with strategy games, as much as with FPSs, they're games of limited resources, limited scouting ability. You can't afford to look everywhere. You don't have time. So this helps you compartmentalize areas that you understand that you don't need to look at. And it can also give you some idea of potential attack routes, and then areas that are definitely insecure. Or as the military intelligence guys would like to say, known knowns, unknown knowns, known unknowns, and unknown unknowns. Well, this allows you to turn a whole area into a known known, as it were. And that can be extremely important, especially in multiplayer games, because human players are smart, but invincible box theory does work against them. That's why it's still used to this day in first-person shooter games and strategy games. Okay, I'll see you guys next time.